smelled lemon polish. The wood grain on the table glowed under the lamplight, and the envelope lay open. My hands were dry cracked. I'd rubbed them raw, counting every cent in that account. $172,000 gone. Used by my son to buy a house for his wife's parents. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the mug. I just opened my laptop and typed 3 letters. IRS. Where are you listening from? Would your child ever dare do this? Subscribe if you're still with me. They say motherhood gets easier with time. Whoever said that never met my daughter-in-law. I moved to Rosevale Creek after Merrick passed. Our old home in Vermont held too many shadows. Cassian said, "Mom, just come stay with us a while." A while turned into 4 years. The guest room smelled like lavender and fresh paint, the kind Delara picked from mood boards and influencer reels. Every morning I made breakfast before they woke. Oats for Elric, steamed greens, and chia for Delara. Cassian never said thank you, but he smiled when he finished his plate. I didn't mind. At first, I thought I was helping. Cassian's startup had just launched. He was always exhausted. Delara worked PR for a firm that spoke in hashtags. They were stressed, tight on money, so I offered what I had time, and my pension. It began with groceries, formula, then came daycare. When Cassian lost his contract for 6 months, I stepped in for the mortgage. Just until you're back on your feet, I'd said. Strange how words like that grow heavier with time. The house never felt like mine. Every inch bore Delara's style: acrylic chairs, beige walls, matte black faucets. My old tea mugs vanished, replaced by minimalist glass sets I never dared touch. One afternoon, I placed a photo of Merrick on the mantel. By evening, it was gone. Delara always smiled, but said my name like it didn't belong in her mouth. "You're such a help," she'd coo then add. "But we don't want Elric to rely on you too much. It blurs boundaries." Boundaries. Right. Once I offered to make dinner. She took the spoon from my hand. "We're eating clean this week," she said, voice dipped in pity. "Cassian?" He just nodded and poured wine. I stayed quiet, because that's what mothers do, we give, even when everything takes. On my 65th birthday, I didn't tell them. I baked myself a lemon cake. No one noticed. Delara walked in, sniffed the air. Kind of heavy, don't you think? Then she ordered salad bowls online. That night, I sat on the porch swing alone. Crickets hummed across the water, and I told myself it's still better than being alone. But something inside me cracked. I started keeping receipts. I read up on inheritance laws, and I opened a new account, quietly, slowly, a place to store what little was left of my future, just enough for a final escape. It started with whispers behind doors I wasn't meant to pass. One afternoon, I came home early from the pharmacy. Elric had a fever. I walked in just as Delara whispered into her phone, "No, she won't know. It's not like she checks the transactions." She spun around when she saw me smiling too fast, like she'd rehearsed the expression. "Oh, you're back already?" Her voice was syrup. Fake and just a bit too smooth. I didn't ask who she was talking to. Didn't press, just nodded and placed the medicine on the counter. That night, I logged into my banking app. It had become a habit not out of paranoia, but survival. A new transaction blinked at the top. $4,000 to a real estate firm. Out of my retirement fund. My throat burned, but I said nothing, not yet. Instead, I listened more, watched, paid attention to what Delara didn't say when Cassian brought up her parents' next chapter. Maybe a garden space, he mused one night. Somewhere peaceful. They've earned it. Delara nodded, stirring almond milk into her tea. It'll be the first place they've ever owned, can you believe that? I could, because I was paying for it. The next week, they started scheduling late-night Zoom calls, design plans, furnishings, landscaping quotes. Every time I walked into the room, the laptop snapped shut like a secret. One morning, Elric accidentally let something slip. "Grandma, did you know Mommy's parents are getting a big white house?" He beamed his tiny fingers, drawing boxy shapes in the air. My heart cracked, not at him, at the realization. Even the child knew before I did. That evening, Cassian poured himself a drink. He clinked his glass to mine. "To family," he said. I smiled thinly, watching the ice swirl. It tasted like metal and betrayal. In that moment, I knew what I was. Not a guest, not a mother, not even a grandmother. I was a silent donor, a living, breathing ATM, and they thought I wouldn't notice, wouldn't act. They were wrong. The papers were glossy, too glossy. They sat in a neat stack on the marble counter one morning, next to a green smoothie and Delara's favorite rose gold laptop. Her coffee steamed. Cassian hummed. I shouldn't have been there, but I'd woken early. Habit from years of motherhood. Grief, worry. The top page read, "Closing documents. Windswept Grove Estate. I didn't breathe, just stared at the total $498,000. Below it, the line that made my knees lock. Partial down payment sourced from Cassian Virell Retirement Contribution Co. Signatory, Odelyn Virell. My name, my money, my silence. It wasn't even crossed out. I opened the fridge just to feel the cold, held onto the handle until the sting in my fingers matched the one in my chest. Later that night, Cassian found me folding Elric's tiny socks. He leaned on the doorframe too casual, too smooth. Mom, I wanted to tell you, we've closed on the house for Delara's parents. I didn't look up, just folded another pair. It's what they deserve, you know. They've never owned property. They gave Delara everything growing up. His voice drifted like radio static, soft, tuned to justification. And he added, we thought you'd want to contribute, their family. I looked at him then, really looked. His hair was too neat, his smile rehearsed. I didn't approve that withdrawal, I said flat as stone. He flinched just a flicker. You always said, if it was something important, that was for your son's emergency, not a beachside porch for your in-laws. Cassian shrugged like he was disappointed. In me. We'll figure it out, it's done. He walked away as if the matter closed itself. That night, Delara left a bottle of red wine by my door. No note, no apology. As if bribery came in Merlot. I poured it down the sink. Listened to the glug of the drain like it was swallowing my final illusions. Then I reached for my ledger and started writing dates, amounts, names. Because if they thought this chapter was over, they hadn't read the ending I had in mind. The brochure sat on the hallway table half tucked under a scented candle. I wouldn't have noticed it if the title hadn't jumped out like a slap. Willowcrest Retirement Village. A photo of a cheerful elderly couple holding yoga mats. Wide smiles, white teeth, fake peace. I picked it up with slow fingers. The paper felt too smooth, expensive. Behind me, Delara's heels clicked down the stairs. Morning, she chirped. Her perfume drifted past jasmine and something sharp. I held up the brochure without turning around. This for me. She paused. Too long. Oh, she laughed. That just something we picked up last weekend. They have full-time nurses, activity rooms, even a greenhouse. You love plants, right? I stared at her until the smile wavered. Cassian came in just then, Ty half nodded. Del, we said we'd talk about this later. You mean, you said, she snapped. Then turned back to me. We just want what's best for you, Odelyn. It's not about pushing you out. It's about comfort, stability. The words slid off her tongue like PR copy. Cassian rubbed his eyes. Mom Elric's starting school soon. Things are changing. The house will feel hectic. My jaw tightened. I've lived through real chaos, Cassian. This isn't it. No one replied. Delara straightened. Well, it's not urgent. We just thought you'd consider. I walked past them. The hallway suddenly felt narrower, heavier. In the kitchen, I poured tea with shaking hands. The mug rattled against the counter. Not urgent, just thoughtful exile. Later that night, Elric cried for me during bedtime. I kissed his forehead, his small hand gripping mine. I don't want you to leave, he whispered. I won't, I lied. Because I wasn't leaving. They were. I called Cecily the next morning, my old friend. Retired tax consultant, sharp as broken glass. She arrived by noon, briefcase in hand. We sat in the garden, mugwort and marigold swaying in the breeze. I showed her everything, the withdrawals, the forged documents, the co-signature I never made. She said nothing for a while, then pulled out a pen. Odie, you have enough here to bury them legally. I didn't smile, but something in my chest relaxed. The first crack of air after years under ice. Let them plan my exit. Let them decorate my room in pastel shades. Because I was decorating something too, a case file. And I knew exactly who would love to read it. 3 letters, IRS. The office smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. Cecily sat across from me, glasses low on her nose, scanning the last document with her red pen poised. You're not just a cosigner, she muttered. They listed you as a silent investor in a private property you didn't even know existed. She clicked her pen shut. That makes this not just unethical, it's tax fraud. My stomach fluttered, but not from fear, from clarity. We spent 2 hours building the packet. Bank statements, screenshots, printouts of every unauthorized transaction. And at the top, my name, not hidden, not in shame, but in defense. As we finished, Cecily looked up. You sure you want to send this? I nodded once, slow. This isn't revenge, I said, folding the pages neatly. It's a receipt. That night, the house buzzed with celebration. Delara's parents had officially moved into their new home. They FaceTimed from the sunroom, beaming like they'd won the lottery, which in a way they had. Tell your mother-in-law thank you again, Mrs. Winford chirped. not knowing I was 3 steps away listening from the hall. Cassian laughed. Mom knows how much this means to us. He didn't see me walk past the doorway. He didn't stop talking. And I didn't stop walking. At 6:42 the next morning, I clicked submit on the IRS whistleblower portal. By 6:47, Cecily had confirmation in her inbox. The report was filed and under review. By evening, I had a missed call, unknown number, no voicemail. Delara looked rattled at dinner. Her phone buzzed. Once, twice. She didn't pick up. The next day, Cassian sat me down, coffee in hand, voice lowered. Hey, did you do something with the accounts? I stirred my tea, lemongrass in silence. The IRS sent an alert. Said there's a discrepancy with the house funds. Delara's freaking out. I looked at him for the first time in weeks. No, Cassian, I said gently. I didn't do something. I corrected something. He blinked. The house is under her parents' name. They didn't even think that I'd stand up for myself. I leaned back in the chair, sunlight cutting across the kitchen tiles. They made me invisible for years, but I learned something in the dark. He waited, silent. Just because you can't see power, I said, doesn't mean it isn't there. I stood, collected my cup, and for the first time in 4 years, left the dishes for someone else. The house was quiet, too quiet. Even the fridge had stopped its usual hum, as if holding its breath. Delara and Cassian were upstairs arguing in tight, hushed tones. I caught Fragment's assets audit her fault. I sat in the living room, hands folded on my lap. The late light spilled in through the blind stripes of golden shadow across the rug. Elric played beside me, lining up toy cars like soldiers. He looked up, eyes wide. Grandma, are you mad at Daddy? I smiled. No, sweetheart, I'm just done pretending. That night I packed quietly. Not everything, just enough. The clothes I still liked. My late husband's watch. And the folder, the one with every receipt, every transfer, every document they'd hoped I'd never read. At 4:30 a.m., I stood in the doorway of Elric's room. Watched him sleep, his breath soft fist curled around the smallest blue car. I love you, I whispered, my throat thick. And one day, you'll understand. By sunrise, Cecily's car rolled up the drive. No luggage rack, no goodbye notes. Just a clean break. As we pulled away, I didn't look back. Because I already knew. No one would be at the window. Not Cassian. Not Delara. They weren't losing a helper. They were losing their shield. And I was gaining something far rarer. Myself. The first night at Cecily's place felt like stepping into silence so thick I could feel it on my skin. Her guest room overlooked a patch of forest not curated like Delara's garden, but wild, honest. We made tea, real tea. None of Delara's dehydrated lemon leaves or overpriced blends. Just chamomile, warm, simple. Cecily opened her laptop. I looped in a friend from the state tax office, she said, tapping the keys. He's discreet and thorough. I handed her the flash drive. She raised a brow. Encrypted. I nodded. I may not know TikTok, but I know financial software. She smiled, not out of amusement, but respect. Over the next 3 days, we built the file. We called it the Winford Extraction. Inside, a timeline of transfers. Email screenshots where Cassian forwarded banking info. A voice memo, Delara laughing. She'll never know. We included the property deed, mortgage papers, tax forms with my name forged like an afterthought. Cecily drafted the official affidavit. I signed each page with the kind of steady hand I hadn't felt in years. Meanwhile, Cassian texted. Delara called. They left voicemails. I didn't answer. Cecily sent the packet through encrypted courier, not just to the IRS, but to Virginia's Department of Elder Affairs and the local fraud unit. Why both, I asked. She sipped her tea. Because you're not just a taxpayer, Odie. You're a victim of elder financial abuse. And they committed multiple counts of identity misuse. I sat back, let that sink in. For once I wasn't a burden, I was a case, and they were defendants. By the end of the week, we received acknowledgement letters. The investigation was active, the property frozen under inquiry. I returned home to Rosevale Creek quietly, alone, not as a guest, but as a witness. The locks on Delara's dream house had been changed. IRS agents had visited twice. Cassian texted again. What did you do, Mom? I replied. I protected myself. Maybe for the first time ever. The next blow didn't come from me, but from Delara's employer. Cecily had forwarded screenshots of her bragging online secured estate for my in-laws through smart co-investments. Someone on Reddit found her, tagged her firm. The post went viral. The agency placed her on leave, then scrubbed her from their website. Cassian begged me to speak on her behalf, to say it was a misunderstanding. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new account, named it Merrick Fund. For me, only me. I changed my number, set boundaries like fences, and I bought a small cabin, not fancy, but mine. with garden soil, real air, and no one watching from the upstairs landing. One morning, a letter came. IRS settlement terms, fines pending, legal action recommended. Cecily called me. They're offering you the option to press charges. I stared at the paper. At the bottom, Delara's signature, shaky. Not rehearsed this time, real. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer. I don't need revenge, I told Cecily. I just needed to be seen. We raised glasses that night, not of wine, but apple cider from the orchard near the cabin. Sweet, tart, real. And as I sipped, I realized power didn't come from noise. It came from proof. And mine was undeniable. The wind carried the scent of rain and split pine. My cabin sat nestled near the edge of Maple Ridge Hill, just high enough to see the river wind through the town. I was clipping lavender when I heard footsteps. Deliberate, dragging. I turned. Cassian stood at the edge of the garden, his hair unkempt, eyes sunken, tie loose like he'd forgotten how to wear it. "Mom," he started, then stopped. I didn't offer tea. Didn't invite him in, just waited. He rubbed his neck. "We got the notice, the IRS, the fines. Delara might lose her license. There's talk of a formal indictment." He looked at me like I was a locked door he used to walk through. "You don't understand what this is doing to us," he whispered. "I might lose the business. Elric's confused. Delara's falling apart." I stared at him for a long time, not in anger, but in inventory, measuring. "You used my name to buy them a house, Cassian. Used my savings. Called it a gift." He looked down. "I thought it'd help everyone." "No," I said softly. "It helped you avoid being the bad guy. You didn't have to say no to your wife, because you said yes for me." He swallowed. "I didn't think it'd get this far." "That's always the excuse," I said, "until the bill shows up." He stepped forward. "I came to ask if you'd reconsider. Talk to the investigators. Say it was a misunderstanding. They'd go easier on Delara." A bird shrieked overhead. The silence after made his request sound louder. "I'm not here for pity," he added. "I'm asking you, as your son." My hands were steady. I brushed dirt from my gloves. "You're not a child, Cassian. You're 38 years old. And you stood beside your wife while she erased me with a smile." His jaw clenched. "But Elric needs us whole. Then show him what accountability looks like." His face crumpled. It was the first honest emotion I'd seen in years. "I'm scared," he whispered. "She said she'd take Elric. Said I let this happen. I don't know what to do." I took a deep breath, felt the weight of every season I'd survived. "You let it happen," I said. "But that doesn't mean you have to keep letting it." He didn't speak again, just stood there, silent. And for once he didn't expect me to fix it. The next week, Delara was served at her parents' new home. Their dream estate paid for by fraud, now flagged by 2 federal agencies. Word spread, local gossip groups lit up. Someone leaked the deed. Suddenly, the woman who once posted about luxury values was being tagged in threads about financial abuse. A parenting blogger called her out by name. The post hit 80,000 shares. Her firm dropped her. Her license went under review. Cassian's startup lost its biggest investor. And through it all, I stayed silent. Not vengeful, just still. Then came the letter. Handwritten, no envelope. Cassian's handwriting. "Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want to tell the truth to Elric someday. I want to be better than the son I was. Thank you for waking me up. I'm sorry I waited this long. Cassian." I folded the letter, placed it next to the lavender I'd dried in the sun. That night I sat on the porch, cider in hand, the stars wheeled quietly overhead. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I felt known. A month later, the case closed quietly. Delara took a plea deal. No jail time, but a permanent mark on her record, and a fine she'll be repaying for years. The house seized by the state, sold under Audit Clause 14B. Her parents moved in with her sister. No more sunroom, no more imported tiles, just reality. Cassian downsized, closed his office, began working freelance from a 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of Rosevale Creek. He drops Elric off at school now, packs his own lunch, learns to braid hair, and every week he sends me a picture. Just Elric laughing in the park, sprawled over books, chasing leaves. No captions, no requests. Just a father finally showing up. Cecily and I planted tomatoes behind the cabin. She wants to start a small nonprofit financial safety education for elder women. She asked if I'd co-chair. I said yes, not out of pride but purpose. Because if what happened to me can happen to someone as careful, as silent, as giving as I was, it can happen to anyone. Sometimes love makes you blind. Other times it makes you disappear. But I've learned disappearing doesn't mean you stop existing. It means you're storing power, waiting, until the moment comes to reclaim it. Now every time I sit by the garden and sip my tea, I remember the silence I once lived in and the voice I took back. So if you're listening to this and you've ever been made to feel like you owe your peace, your savings, your place in the world, just to keep the people you love comfortable, ask yourself, what would you reclaim if no one expected you to stay quiet anymore? Was I heartless, or did I finally choose myself? Drop your vote in the comments and subscribe for more stories where silence meets justice.